I hear people say things when I am out in the community doing the things I love. They talk about my mother and how backwards, primitive she is, and how she practices witchcraft. And the words that these people say, it causes me great pain because these people don't really know who my mother actually is. And so this is the story of my mother, Renee Sanssouci. In the morning, she eats breakfast. Her favorite meal is made of eggs, bacon, hash browns, and depending on her mood for that day, she will either drink a Diet Coke or she will choose coffee. I have been cooking such a meal for her since I was 10 years old. And it is one of our greatest times to share in the morning. She was born in July of 1962. She had been a little girl watching the Apollo 11 moon landings, the broadcast live on TV. And like many other people around the country and around the world, this sensation of there's something more began to bloom within her. And from that point forward, like many others, she began to search for such human possibility, because that's what it was, possibility. My mother had been born in a time where Native American religious practice had been illegal. The government had banned all forms of Native American traditional spirituality out of fear from what had happened with the ghost dance back in the 1880s, 1890s. So she was never exposed to a spiritual life. She would go and she would ask her elders, why don't people do this anymore? And they would answer her with, no one does this, Renee. No one has done this in a very long time. After breakfast, we adjourned to her office space. It is during this time where she starts to share things from her own childhood. So see, her mother, Alice Sanssouci, had been subjected to the boarding school system and had never been able to properly bond or share things with her in a mother and daughter manner. It had taken them many, many decades to reach that point where they could embrace each other and speak about a lot of these cultural things that my grandmother had never shared with my mother when she had been a child. And it is also during this time where I begin to see things, all of these stories that I had heard growing up, how they have come into focus and into context. And it is from this point where my mother continues on with her work. Sometimes we drive to these places to give prayers for homes, prayers for businesses, prayers for people who are in need of help, and prayers for people who are making their journey home across the Milky Way. And sometimes we encounter people who have never embraced their own traditional culture. And so as we're going or as we're leaving, she often says, I don't blame them. They don't know their own culture. I won't fault them for it. My mother, at some point, due to health issues my grandfather experienced, met one of my paternal uncles and his ceremonial circle. At this point, this had been after the Native American Religious Freedom Act had been signed into place, and ceremony was beginning to bloom back into being again. Like our sacred pipe ceremony was no longer illegal, we could make relations with each other again. And so my mother got to finally see and hold within her hands the spirituality and the old ways that she had not had as a child. But during this time, she had been selected by the spirits to become a spiritual leader, a medicine woman. Medicine women had had a great role in our societies at one point in the past, but has since fallen to the wayside in favor of things like the Native American church, which is entirely male run. So my mother is considered an atypical person among her tribe, as well as to some degree on my tribe. It is when she comes home that she is able to take off her coat, take off her shoes, and lay down in bed to rest. This is the time where we share small joys and small sorrows. We say our prayers over our dinner. We pray and we smudge off our house, our car, our cat. And she continues to tell us the reasons why she has raised us the way she has, with ceremony. And this is what she does for a living. She educates children in the most basic of their spiritual ways. She educates teachers, their parents, their grandparents. She wants them to embrace this thing that had been taken from them a long, long time ago. But still there remains this stigma of witchcraft, of primitive practice. And I see that every single day of how people don't understand. But I am my mother's daughter, and someday I too will take up what she has taken up, and I will be as she is.